Hey guys, it's Van Farmstead here. This is part two of my how I build my beehives, and this is my little completed beehive. This is a deep nucleus. This has the large deep frames in it. It has just a standard, just a little plywood lid that covers it, and that way you can, or I can get my hive tool in. This is a hive tool. I get this from Rossmann also. It's got a little crowbar type thing you can pry with, or a flat part that you can put in. And it's got this little gizmo lets you remove nails or little things that have stuck to it, and you can always kind of use it as a hammer to put your little small nails and things for the frames back together. It's also handy for going in and separating the frames because the bees generally tend to glue everything together, and it's really handy when you can get right underneath the lid and pop it up so you can get in there. I haven't had any problem using this type of setup. Most of the regular beehives that I buy, when I was buying them, they came with a little spacer that went underneath here. It's called an inside cover. And I found generally what happens when I use that is that it made too much space, and the bees built a bunch of weird honeycomb cells up there, and it just made a really big mess when I went into the hive to open it up. So I don't use those anymore. This is easy to remove. You have access to all your frames inside, and the bottom board that I used for it is the same, cut from the same piece of plywood. It's just old scrap plywood I had laying around, and it will give you access right into the beehives. These have not been painted yet, obviously, but I'm going to paint them white, and that way they'll last a really, really long time. This is the little spacer I was telling you about. That is essentially just a 3/4 inch cut off of a 1x4, and this allows the space for the frames to stay off of the bottom, and this goes all the way around. It's brad nailed to the bottom of the beehive, only on these nucleuses, these big deep boxes. And this gives the space for the bees to crawl in and crawl up, and you can see that the frames can just be free and wiggle all they want to, and it gives the bees enough space to get around and go between and underneath and around. So anytime you have extra space in a beehive that's not being used, the bees will use it. They will fill it full of wax and make honeycomb, or they will raise little baby bees out of it. Now, when I use this as my bottom board, I don't have to build a hive stand or a bottom board. And essentially, when you buy a beehive, and I've got these old destroyed ones, you get this contraption, which is essentially, this one's been out in the weather forever, so it's essentially rotting apart. You have one of these on each side that's cut to accept this 1x4. And these are actually like 1x6s, and there's 4 of them. So 1, 2, and they're just sandwiched between one of these on that side and one of them on this side. And when you look, essentially this is the same on this side. This one's kind of falling apart. It's a 1x4 that's cut So here's a new one. There's an old one you can see. And they are exactly the same size. So, what you have is, instead of making this contraption and having to make a stand for it to sit on, which this is the, where the bees would land and walk up and walk into the hive, and this bottom board would sit on top of it. You can do it with one hand here, like that, and then your beehive would sit on top of this right here. And then, well, okay, why would we do all that when we can do this? And it's cheaper and easier, and it works, and the bees will use it just the same, and it will last actually about the same, if not longer. So the bees can land here and crawl in, and this whole thing is the same size. So I did it for cheaper, and I used this really expensive handy dandy jig on my table saw, which is nothing more than a piece of offcut 2x4, and I set it to the width of this one before, and yes, it's unplugged. There's the plug for all you safety conscious people. You don't work on power tools that are plugged in. And ta-da! So this is an offcut piece, or a leftover piece, if I can get the label to show here. And I got this out of Lowe's, and you can see I'm going to try and use everything we got, and we're going to try and do the best we can with what we got. So this is the completed hive. It's 10 frames. You see there's the big tall frames for this deep nucleus. And once we get it painted, we'll put it out in the bee yard, and we'll put some bees in it, and I'll probably try and make a video of that. You should have 3 packages of bees coming with queens very soon, and hopefully we'll get some honey. So y'all have a good one. Take care.